Well, hi there, it's Tiffany from Daisy Farm Crafts, and today I thought I'd show my face and say hello and thank you for all of our subscribers on YouTube and Pinterest and Facebook, Instagram. We love you all, and we are just having so much fun designing blankets now for baby Jack and for still all the babies that keep coming into our lives. Today I have made a variation on our simple ripple blanket. And oh my gosh, I am in love with this pattern. I hope you will be too. It's really fairly simple. I just wanted to get like some extra nubbies in here for the color. So anyway, let's get started. Okay, here's a little bit closer up view of what we're going to be making today. Couple things that I'm going to be teaching you is a foundation double crochet. I'll teach you how to do this ribbed border. And basically these little nubbies are treble crochet or triple crochet. I've heard it both ways, followed by a single crochet. And it looks the same on both sides. So I just loved making this. Now I am using one of my favorite yarns, mainly because I can get the colors that I need for the project. This is Pumpkin in Karen Simply Soft, made with acrylic. This is acrylic, and I used the 5mm H hook. These are Susan Bates Comfort Grips, and I buy them at Joann's. I do not know where to buy them online, so I'm sorry about that. The other color is light country blue and white, and I used 2 of these skeins. Of course, I had, yeah, this is my second one I started. The blue, actually, I want you to order 2 just in case, because this is a lot. This is all I had left after 1, and so I would hate for you to be short. And then I used 3 white because I chose to do the border. So 3, 2, 2. This is a baby blanket size, turned out to be about 34 by 34. Okay, the reason why I am starting with a foundation double crochet is because when I went to add the border, I wanted to work around this very starting row. It's just a more flexible way of starting, and then there isn't just a definite stitch going through. So, but honestly, it really won't be noticeable if you do have to start with just chains, if you can't, if you're struggling with making this foundation crochet. But hopefully I can make it look, it can go easier for you. So how you start a foundation double crochet for this one. We need to chain 3, and this chain 3 counts as our very first stitch. So you'll yarn over and insert your hook underneath this top loop and underneath the second bump in the back of that chain. Yarn over and pull up a loop. Yarn over and just pull through 1. Now this is going to be the bottom of the row. We kind of are working it sideways, and you'll see as we keep adding more stitches here. So then yarn over just like a double crochet, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through 2. Now in this pattern, the chain 3 that we just made is the first stitch. So that's 1, and we just made the second one. So let's make a third. So remember that very first yarn over that we did, it created this chain. We are going to insert our hook underneath those 2 loops of the chain. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and just pull through 1. Now going forward, if you had a hard time finding that chain, I like to just leave my thumb right on it, kind of pinch it, so I know that's the one I need to work into. Then I'll finish making the double crochet, just like that. And we have made 3 foundation double crochets. Well, I'm counting the first chain 3 as 1. So yarn over, here's my thumb pointing, helping me find and I am working under those two loops. Here's my chain. That's the stitch that I want to work into. Pull through 2, pull through 2. Now the pattern repeat for this blanket is 12 plus 3, and that would be if you're doing the chains. So if you're doing the chain method, and which is totally fine, you're going to be working for today's sample, work 24 plus 3, which would be 27. But today, for foundation chain, we're just going to work 24 stitches, and this one counts as number 1, the chain 3. So there I am working underneath, yarning over, pulling through 1. I kind of hang on to that, pull through 2, pull through 2. Yarn over. So this is the bottom of the row. Pull through 1, pull through 2, pull through 2. And you see how your V's kind of start to develop. So it's important to work under both of those loops. Yarn over, pull through the 1, that makes the next loop, then this makes the double crochet. So I will finish off camera. I want to have 24 foundation double crochets made, which basically is the chain 3 plus 23. All right, so here is my foundation double crochet. It's the pattern repeat of 12. Basically, I just needed 12, then plus 3, but we're going to put our plus 3 after we make our 12. So anyway, today I made 24, but I am counting the first 3 chains as a stitch. So I have this one plus 23. Now after this, then we will chain 3. Then turn your work. So if you were just doing the chain, you would chain 27 stitches. This would be, and you'd be starting to work in your 4th chain from the hook. So if you opted not to do this foundation row, work into the 4th chain from the hook. We will begin in this very first stitch with a double crochet. Now we are going to work 3 more double crochets into the next stitches. So 1, I should say 1 each into each of the next 3 stitches is double crochet. Now in these next 2 stitches, we need to double crochet 2 together. So that means yarn over, pull up a loop, and just yarn over and pull through 2. Then stop right there, yarn over, insert your hook into the next stitch, yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, and then pull through all 3. We have combined these 2 stitches into 1. Now let's repeat that and do it again. Yarn over. I like to think just work half of that double crochet stitch, then yarn over and pull through all 3. Okay, that's our little valley. Now we need to work 3 double crochets, 1 each in the next 3 stitches. Now we need to increase and add that, what we just took away, we need to add back into these next 2 stitches. So we double crochet 2 times into the next stitch, and then 2 times into the next stitch. Now in between these peaks and valleys, it's helpful to remember that you always work 3 double crochets. Now let's work one more valley, which means we are yarning over, inserting our hook, yarning over, pull through 2, stopping right there because we're combining 2 stitches into 1. Pull through. And going to do that again for the next 2 stitches, a double crochet 2 together. Now let's work 3 double crochets, 1 each, into the remaining 3 stitches. And now in that very last, remember the chain 3s, I want you to work 2 double crochets. So in the top of either that turning chain or that first chain that is the chain 3, work 2 double crochets. Now those 2 double crochets mimic the chain 3 over here and the first double crochet of the round. And then you start 3 double crochets. Okay, now, right away, though, we're going to change color. And I did the pumpkin color first. So let's do some pumpkin. So on that last stitch, yarn over, or not yarn over, let's change our colors by simply laying the yarn over the hook. And we chain 3. Now, we will always chain 3 and turn for this pattern. Okay, let's start out. We're going to start out in the same way that we did using the white. You'll always start right here in this very first stitch. If you count down from the hook, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4. Always start the row with a double crochet. This mimics the 2 double crochets that we'll work on at the end of the row. It's just that this chain 3 counts as the double crochet. Okay, here's where we are going to get those little nubbies. So across the next 3 stitches, let's start by yarning over twice and work a treble crochet. Yarn over, pull up a loop, pull through 2, pull through 2, and pull through 2. You kind of get this taller stitch here. The next stitch will be a single crochet into that next stitch, and that kind of pokes it, makes it pop right out to the other side. I think they call this a crunch stitch. So I'm making a variation. Now let's make another treble crochet. And that's it. Those are those 3 stitches. Now remember, we need to combine 2 stitches together. This is our valley, so we still will always have 3 stitches in between peaks and valleys. But in these colorful rows, we are just going to work a single crochet 2 together. Let's do it twice. So just insert your hook, pull up a loop, insert your hook into the next stitch, pull up a loop, then yarn over and pull through all 3. Okay, here we go. Let's start with a treble crochet, then a single, and then another treble. Those are our 3 stitches that are in between the peak and the valley. So here we are on our peak, and we need to work 2 stitches. So let's just keep the pattern alternating. Start with a single crochet so that we can lock down that treble, that crunch, make it poke out. But in the very same stitch, work a treble so that we can get 2 stitches into that peak right there. Now let's do that again. Single and treble. All right, across the next 3 stitches. This time it will start with a single, but we're just going to keep the pattern going. A treble, a single. Now for this valley, we're going to do the same thing and work single crochets, 2 together, twice. Boom. Let's continue that pattern for the last 3 stitches. It will start with a treble, and then single, and then treble right into that last stitch. And you should be left with the chain 3 turning chains. And in those chain 3 turning chains, work 2 regular double crochets. This will probably be the trickiest. I'll slow you down, but it's important to go ahead and make those 2 double crochets. It's got to have 2 of them. Now chain 3 and turn your work. All right, let's repeat that. Always start with a double crochet right into the very first stitch. That mimics the 2 double crochets that you ended the row with. Now go ahead and just start with a treble, then a single, and your treble. And right away, we're going to sort of break up the pattern because we've got right here to our valley, and we need to single crochet these 2 together and do it twice. So that's the only time that really we break up the pattern, is that we kind of have to put 2 singles together. So it throws us off a little bit, but we're fine. Just start again. Treble, single, and a treble. Okay, if I can remember that I always have 3 in between the peaks and the valleys, that helped me a lot. Now, in these next 2 stitches, I work a single and a treble into the first one, and a single and a treble into the next one. Those are the peaks. Now you come out of that and you begin with a single, a treble, and a single. That's the only time really the pattern kind of breaks, but it works out just fine if you can keep that in mind. Then you've got your single crochets 2 together, and then start the pattern again. Here's the last 3 stitches of the row. And all I've got left is that turning chain, and I've got to work my double crochets into them. There's 1 and 2. Very important to keep the sides of your blanket straight. You've got to hit those 2 single crochets. Now I worked this for 8 rows. Got 8 rows in the colors, and then we go back and we'll add the white. So I'll do this off camera and come back and I'll show you what to do when you finish the blanket. All right, so this is what 8 rows will look like, kind of this little nubby crunch stitch. And it's time to go back and switch to the white. So here we go. Oh, I cut the white after every color change too. And I also cut the pumpkin color. And I weave these ends in at the end of the project. So here we go. Let's grab our white. lay that across the hook, pull through, give myself a little bit more of a tail there. Now we're just going to work all the double crochets in the same pattern, but it really mimics that second row that we made. We still make sure that there's a double crochet right there at the first. We're still always mimicking the 2 double crochets that end the row, and then there they are that begin the row. So I like to think of those as extras. And then we go into the 3 double crochets, and then 2 sets of double crochets together. There's 1, and here's 2. Now I work those 3 double crochets. And here we are at the peak, where I'll work 2 double crochets into the next stitch and 2 double crochets into the next. I'm going to work the 3 double crochets in between the peak and the valley. 1, 2, 3. And here is my double crochet 2 together. Worked really across those 4 stitches, combining them to make them back into 2. Final 3 double crochets, and we're still going to work our 2 double crochets into the top of that turning chain. And if you'll notice, I'm just starting to anywhere in that turning chain works just fine. Okay, let's do 1 more row of this, chain 3 and turn. Actually, no, it repeats. I think I can stop here for you for this part of the pattern. Here's why. If we can just pretend that this is our last row, I think we've got the gist of this blanket. So pretend that we have just worked this final row, and I just worked this row. Now we will work the row before we start adding the border. I don't think I need to show you much more than that. So in the middle of the blanket though, work back across using the same instructions. Now on this last row of the blanket, we want to mimic this first row. Okay, so all we need to do for this one is still work our very first starting double crochet, but now we are going to work 1 double crochet into the top of each stitch. And here's why. We just want to start straightening out the top of this blanket, just to kind of mimic that foundation row at the bottom. So there, I just worked right into those 2 togethers. I'm not making a valley, but it sort of will be a little bit of a valley that will even out as I add the border. So work 1 double crochet into each stitch. I'm ignoring the peak there. Okay, so this will mimic the beginning and the very last row of the blanket. In between the color changes, you'll still work the same pattern of combining the 2 stitches. You'll keep the ripple pattern going. It's just on this last row that I'm going to show you, and we'll start with that border and how I worked the border. Okay, so on the very last stitch, I still, into the turning chain, I worked my 2 double crochets. But what we need to do is we need to add 2 rows of double crochet here on the side. So I just pretended here. And of course, you'll take the time to weave your ends in before you can start this, but I'm going to ignore them for right now. Let's just work 3 and get ourselves around the corner. Okay, now at the end of every row, generally you work 2 double crochets per row. So since this one kind of was already the corner, I'm going to work my 2 double crochets around that next post to count for the white. So we know that we've made 8 rows here. We need 2 stitches per row for a total of 16. So what I like to do is just pick one of the posts and work my 2 double crochets around one of the posts instead of trying to just evenly place 16 along the row. So I'll go to the next post, which is down here, or chain 3, because these are those, you know, where we chain 3 and turn. There's a set. And here's our last set. So we have 16 double crochets, but there's like 8 little sets. So here we go. Here's the first 2 around the white. Then here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right. Okay. Sorry I'm being lazy and not showing you how to do those ends, but if you are going to be doing this blanket, you're not a beginner and you know how to weave your ends in. So now we have these 2 rows, so let's work 4. So here's my first set. And here's this set right here. Okay. Now, what I'm going to do is just work 1 into here so I can chain 3 and turn. We're just working the sides of this blanket first, because we want to mimic these 2 rows on this side. So now this is easy. This first chain 3 counts as the first stitch. Just work 1 double crochet into the top of each stitch. All right, when you get back to this side, to that middle stitch, you know, that kind of we started, just slip stitch down into it, and we are going to tie off this side. So you get one side completely done. Kind of looks like that. Now let's come back over here to this side. Pull up a loop into that stitch over there. That's the top of the turning chain. Let's chain 3. We can work 2 double crochets around this post right here, 2 around this one. Okay, let's do our 8 sets of 2 along the edge. Okay, off camera, I got those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sets to cover the color. And now at the end of this side, we've got our 2 at the end of this row and 2 at the end of this row. I'm going to work 1 kind of at the end of that row into the top of that stitch there, chain 3, turn my work, and work 1 double crochet into each tops of each of these, this first chain 3 counts as my first stitch. So I'm not working right there. I'm working into the next one. All right, I just finished this side here, and I'm going to do the same thing and just finish it off with a slip stitch, just so I can kind of make this as even as a base row as we can. Okay, so here we go. We've got our blanket mostly edged. Now we're going to go in and work the ribbing. All right, we have a little bit neater sample to start with here. Now this next round, still kind of need to give yourself a little leeway. We've created new corners, but some of these corners still have the sides of the post, so we can't exactly work our front post and double back post crochet around them, but you'll see how we'll just kind of make it work. So why don't you start and pull up a loop on, I want to start right here. So this is our foundation chain. So we're kind of starting with the blanket upside down. This is our very first foundation row right there. So you'll see those chain 3s. That's kind of our new corner right there. So pull up a loop and chain 3. Now let's just work 1 double crochet around the side of that post, since we don't really have a spot yet to work a front post or a back post double crochet, and we don't yet either around this post, but we will get them the next round, so don't worry. Okay, this very first stitch that you can see, we've got some stitches worked around it, but that's a post. Let's go ahead and treat it like a post and pop that forward. And now come down here around the post of the stitch and pop it backwards. So this is the front post double crochet, and this is the back post double crochet. Let's alternate that all the way across, and I'll show you what to do in the corner. All right, so we kind of got to get ourselves to transition around this corner. So here's how we're going to do it. Just work the base of that starting row as a back post. And so here we have the sides of the stitches. So we're going to work just 1 and 2 double crochets right there. And then we're going to have to turn this into a corner. So what we'll do is just chain 1, and I'm going to slip stitch to the start of that first stitch. We kind of have our corner, and on the next round you'll see how we work these, and it'll work out. So let's just start repeating. Don't chain or anything, just around this next post. Let's pop it forward and then pop that one to the back. Okay, do this to the next corner and I'll show you what to do. These corners are, this will just be the trickiest part, is to just kind of, we've got to get these continue to be rounded out so we can continue adding. Okay, here we are to that next corner. So our little border is started taking shape here with the front and back post stitching. So I just worked a back post, and here's where we had our last double crochet and we slip stitched. So we're going to try and turn this one into a corner. So what I'll do is I'll work this first stitch, and then around this space is where, and going forward, this is really what the corners will be. It's a double crochet, a chain, and a double crochet. That's kind of what, and then we get our corner. So we're attempting to get that worked out as we come up against these spots where we had to improvise a little bit to get the evenness around the whole blanket, the thickness the same. Okay, so what do we have here? Let's just work a regular double crochet around it, and this one seems a little bit bulky, but I think we've been popping these forward. And this is the end where all the stitches are, and we've been popping those either forward or backward, but we've been treating them as posts so that we can continue working our ribbing this first round. It's always that first round when we're trying to get everything set up that our stitches are tricky, but after this it will be really smooth. And I think I did 4 to 5 rounds of the ribbing. I love it so much. And I used to teach the corners differently. I finally have figured out a different way to do the corners that I think I am liking a whole lot better. Okay, we're almost done with this round. I'll meet you at the end. All right, this is the third side where we're going to have to do one of those, what we did in a different corner where we chained 1, and we're going to slip stitch to the top of that next stitch to kind of give us the corner. And then we can, don't chain or anything, we can continue working the ribbing around that corner. Okay, this is our final corner here. Sorry, I kind of worked it without showing you on camera. I just did a back post stitch to line up, and all I'm going to do is work a double crochet. You'll see this chain 3 that we started with. Let's do one of those, chain 1 and slip stitch to the top of it. That creates that final corner. Now let's not turn our work or anything. Let's continue working in the same direction. And since I'm going to count down to where I have the first one popping forward. Remember, we had to work those extra ones that aren't worked yet. So if this is forward, that needs to be back, forward, back. So start with a back post double crochet so that we can pop this next one forward and this one to the back and this one forward, because the most important thing is to line these double crochets up. So if they're pointing forward, keep them pointing forward. If they're pointing to the back, keep them to the back. Okay, now I'm so excited to get to this next corner. I'll show you for sure how corners will be worked throughout the rest of the blanket. Here we are, arriving around our first corner. So here's some double crochets that need to be worked. Just continue the pattern, a forward and a back. And here is the chain 1 space. So what you'll need to do in every chain 1 space is simply work a regular double crochet, a chain 1 with a regular double crochet. That's our corner. Now let's continue working. I can see this one from down below that's not worked, and here's one popping forward, so I'll work this one to the back and then continue on. Work this one to the front. Okay, here's probably a corner that I can really demonstrate that we've got to, that we worked a double crochet, a chain one, and a double crochet. That was the corner. So it's an unworked, we don't know which way it was popping, but that's okay because this one was popping forward, so the next one will pop to the back, and in the chain one space we'll work double crochet, chain, double crochet. Those will be our new double crochets to work on the next round. Now, since we still had to work to get around that corner on that row, these are unworked, but that's okay. So that's forward, so that one would be back, so that one would be forward. I just like to look ahead and then count back and make sure that they're alternating. And then we start down. Yay, it's starting to come together. I know that last round was probably pretty rough trying to figure out where exactly to put your double crochets, but if you can just try and think that we're making corners that are 2 double crochet, chain 1 in between them, that might help you out the most. Okay, here is our very starting corner where we had the double crochet, the chain 1, and the sort of was that chain 3 that we slip stitched into and then just started right going. So I've just done a back post double crochet. I'll still work around that post. If there's a post to work around in the row below, work around it. But around those chain 1 spaces, work a double crochet, a chain, and a double crochet. Now, there's no need to turn. Let's just keep going. And I think I can reach down here, work this one before coming around here to work this one to the back, pop this one to the front, and we are on our way. I worked this for about 2 more rounds, and it got a lot easier around the corners after every round. So I'm going to work one more corner for you to show you that then I think after this round they're all the same, because you would have worked a double crochet, a chain, a double crochet. Okay, I'm going to work across that row and then finish right there. Okay, here's what I'm saying. Here's a corner that we made that is just the double crochet, chain 1, double crochet. So they're unworked, but the last one I worked was a back post, so I'll pop this one forward, and then around the chain 1 space I'll work double crochet, chain, double crochet. There we go. And then since this one, the next stitch is popped to the back, I'll just pop this one forward. And there you have it. When you work enough rounds, then just slip stitch to that first starting stitch and finish your work off, and you've got it. And I really like how, I mean, give yourself a break. I know that it's hard to get these little corners going, but look, even if we had some double crochets unworked and then worked, it all blends together and it looks okay. So the reason why this one is tricky though is because we're taking a ripple and we're trying to straighten out a border. So that's why it's a little tricky, but the more rounds you do, it all ends up very square looking. Here is the original blanket one more time. And here maybe is an example of what the corner will eventually start looking like just as you go around. So anyway, I think that's the last corner. I slip stitched there and tied off. All right, you guys, enjoy making this blanket. If you do, please don't get too frustrated on this border. If it's too complicated, maybe just choose another one, or just finish off with those 2 rounds down the side and then work like a round of single crochet. I think that could be really cute too. I'm going to continue. I probably will do a more square blanket, and I'll have a better tutorial for this ribbed blanket coming soon so that we're not converting a ripple into a straight edge. That's where it's a little bit tricky. So thank you so much for sticking with me if you're still here, and you have a wonderful day. All right, see you next time.